At 40 minutes past midnight on July 5, 1969, a phone rang inside the Vallejo, California Police Dispatch Center. The man on the line did not whisper, he did not panic, and he did not ask for help. Instead, he spoke in a low, monotone voice, gave the exact location of two shot teenagers, took credit for their murder, and then added a chill sentence that instantly reframed everything the police thought they knew about local violence. He told her he had also killed those kids last year, before calmly ending the call with two words, "Goodbye." The dispatcher, Nancy Slover, immediately alerted patrol units, but the call had been placed from a public payphone at the intersection of Springs Road and Chulomney Street, less than a mile from the Vallejo Police Department and mere blocks from victim Darlene Ferrin's home. By the time officers arrived at the booth, the receiver was hanging loose, but the caller was long gone. What made this moment pivotal was not just the arrogance of the killer claiming responsibility, but the operational detail he provided. In a calm, unhurried voice, the man told police dispatcher Nancy Slover that he was using a 9mm Luger and explicitly took credit not only for the midnight assault on Darlene Ferrin and Michael Majow, but also for the murders of Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday 7 months earlier at Lake Herman Road. That detail, the specification of the weapon, and the explicit timeline linking two distinct attacks across two jurisdictions, instantly shifted the investigation from a pair of localized, isolated tragedies into a unified, methodical campaign of terror. But the immediate logistical reality was even more disturbing. Investigators quickly traced the call to a public payphone at the intersection of Chulomney Street and Springs Road in Vallejo, a location that carried an alarming geographical significance. The phone booth stood less than a mile from the Vallejo Police Department and a mere 3 blocks from Darlene Ferrin's residence. Whoever made that call had not fled into the shadows of the surrounding countryside after the attack. He had driven straight back into the heart of the city, parked his vehicle, and casually stepped into an illuminated glass booth that, chilling detail, was only a prelude to the theatrical escalation that was about to unfold. Less than 3 months after the attack at Blue Rock Springs, the killer abandoned his cover of darkness entirely. On a bright Saturday afternoon in late September 1969, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were relaxing on a remote peninsula at Lake Berryessa in Napa County. Out of the oak trees stepped a man wearing an uncanny, hand-sewn black hood that draped down to his waist, complete with clip-on sunglasses over the eye holes and a white crosshair symbol stitched neatly across the chest. He brandished a gun, claimed to be an escaped convict, and demanded money and car keys. But money was never the motive. After binding both victims with bindings that would later be described as unusually tight and efficient, the attacker proceeded to stab them repeatedly, leaving them for dead. But as the investigation would soon uncover, this brutal act was only the beginning of a long and terrifying series of events that would capture the attention of the entire nation. The attacker, who would come to be known as the Zodiac killer, seemed to always be one step ahead of the law, leaving behind a trail of cryptic clues and codes that would challenge even the most skilled detectives. As the first responders arrived at the scene, they found the victims, Michael Majow and Darlene Ferrin, fighting for their lives, with Majow managing to provide a description of the attacker that would later prove to be crucial in the investigation. But that wasn't the only lead that the police had to go on. A 911 call was made from a payphone just a few blocks away from the crime scene, with the caller claiming responsibility for the attack and warning that he would strike again. The call was brief, but the voice on the other end was calm and collected, sending chills down the spines of the operators who took the call. As the police began to canvass the area, they found a piece of torn fabric caught in the car door, which would later be matched to the clothing of the attacker. But despite these promising leads, the investigation was about to hit its first major roadblock. The police were faced with a daunting task deciphering the cryptic messages and codes that the Zodiac killer had left behind, which would prove to be a challenge that would frustrate even the most experienced cryptographers. As the days turned into weeks, the Zodiac killer continued to taunt the police, sending them letters and cryptograms that seemed to defy solution. But one of the most intriguing aspects of these messages was the claim that the killer made that he had already killed multiple victims, and that the attack on Majow and Ferrin was just the beginning. The police were skeptical at first, but as they began to dig deeper, they realized that the killer may have been telling the truth. A a series of unsolved murders in the area, which had previously been thought to be unrelated, began to take on a new significance. The victims all had one thing in common: they had been killed in isolated areas, with no witnesses and no signs of struggle. It was as if the killer had been practicing, honing his skills before striking again. But what was the motive behind these killings, and how were they connected to the Zodiac killer's twisted game of cat and mouse with the police? The investigation was about to take a dramatic turn as a mysterious letter arrived at the offices of the San Francisco Chronicle. The letter was from the Zodiac killer, and it contained a cryptogram that he claimed would reveal his identity. The police were ecstatic finally. They had a chance to unmask the killer and bring an end to the terror. But as they began to work on the code, they realized that it was far more complex than they had initially thought. The cryptogram was a masterpiece of misdirection, with multiple layers of encryption and red herrings designed to throw the police off the scent. It was a challenge that would push the investigators to their limits, and one that would ultimately lead to a surprising revelation. But that wasn't the strangest part. As the police delved deeper into the code, they began to realize that the Zodiac killer may have been more than just a serial killer. He may have been a mastermind, always staying one step ahead of the law and leaving behind a trail of clues that were designed to confuse and mislead. As the police continued to work on the cryptogram, they began to notice a strange pattern. The killer seemed to be using a unique code, one that was unlike anything they had seen before. It was as if he had created his own language, one that was designed to be indecipherable to all but the most skilled cryptographers. But why would the killer go to such great lengths to create such a complex code? Was it simply a game, a way to prove his intellectual superiority over the police? Or was there something more sinister at play? The police were about to uncover a shocking truth: that the Zodiac killer's codes were not just random symbols, but were actually a window into his twisted psyche. The codes contained references to ancient mythology, astronomy, and even alchemy, revealing a killer who was not just a monster, but a complex and calculating individual with a deep understanding of the darker aspects of human nature. But as the investigation continued, the police began to realize that they were dealing with a killer who was not just intelligent, but also highly unpredictable. The Zodiac killer seemed to be able to strike at will, leaving behind a trail of bodies and cryptic clues that seemed to defy solution. The police were faced with a daunting task to predict the killer's next move and to stop him before he could strike again. But as they delved deeper into the case, they began to realize that the Zodiac killer was not just a lone individual, but a symbol of a larger societal problem. The killings had exposed a dark underbelly of American society, one that was marked by violence, inequality, and social unrest. The Zodiac killer had tapped into this sense of unease, using it to fuel his own twisted desires and to create a sense of fear and uncertainty that would haunt the nation for years to come. As the police continued to work on the case, they began to uncover a web of contradictions and complications that would challenge even the most experienced investigators. The Zodiac killer seemed to be a master of disguise, able to blend in seamlessly with his surroundings and to adopt different personas at will. But despite his ability to deceive, the killer had left behind a trail of clues that would ultimately lead to his downfall. The police had discovered a piece of evidence that would prove to be crucial in the investigation: a fingerprint found on one of the killer's letters that did not match anyone in the police database. It was a tantalizing lead, one that would take the police on a wild goose chase across the country in search of a suspect. But as they followed the trail of clues, they began to realize that the Zodiac killer was not just a common criminal, but a highly sophisticated individual with a deep understanding of the law and the methods used by law enforcement. The investigation was about to take a dramatic turn as the police received a letter from the Zodiac killer that would change everything. The letter contained a claim that would send shockwaves through the police department. The killer claimed to have killed a total of 37 victims and provided a list of names and dates that would be impossible to verify. It was a bold claim, one that would either prove to be a desperate attempt to throw the police off the scent or a chilling revelation that would expose the true extent of the killer's crimes. The police were faced with a daunting task to verify the claims made by the Zodiac killer and to bring an end to the terror that had gripped the nation. But as they delved deeper into the case, they began to realize that the truth was far more complex and nuanced than they had ever imagined. The Zodiac killer was not just a monster, but a symbol of a larger societal problem, one that would require a deep understanding of the human psyche and the darker aspects of human nature. As the investigation continued, the police began to uncover a pattern of behavior that would prove to be crucial in understanding the Zodiac killer's motivations. The killer seemed to be drawn to areas with high foot traffic, where he could blend in with the crowds and strike without warning. He was a master of manipulation, using his charm and charisma to lure his victims into a false sense of security. But despite his ability to deceive, the killer had left behind a trail of clues that would ultimately lead to his downfall. The police had discovered a series of inconsistencies in the killer's letters, inconsistencies that would prove to be crucial in uncovering his true identity. The killer had claimed to be a highly educated individual with a deep understanding of cryptography and coding. But as the police delved deeper into the case, they began to realize that the killer's claims may have been exaggerated and that he may have been using his intelligence and charm to manipulate the police and the public. The investigation was about to take a dramatic turn as the police received a tip from an unlikely source, a former suspect who had been cleared of any wrongdoing. The suspect claimed to have information about the Zodiac killer's true identity and provided a name and address that would take the police on a wild goose chase across the country. It was a tantalizing lead, one that would either prove to be a desperate attempt to throw the police off the scent or a chilling revelation that would expose the true identity of the killer. The police were faced with a daunting task to verify the claims made by the suspect and to bring an end to the terror that had gripped the nation. But as they delved deeper into the case, they began to realize that the truth was far more complex and nuanced than they had ever imagined. The Zodiac killer was not just a monster, but a symbol of a larger societal problem, one that would require a deep understanding of the human psyche and the darker aspects of human nature. As the police continued to work on the case, they began to uncover a web of contradictions and complications that would challenge even the most experienced investigators. The Zodiac killer seemed to be a master of disguise, able to blend in seamlessly with his surroundings and to adopt different personas at will. But despite his ability to deceive, the killer had left behind a trail of clues that would ultimately lead to his downfall. The police had discovered a series of inconsistencies in the killer's letters, inconsistencies that would prove to be crucial in uncovering his true identity. The killer had claimed to be a highly educated individual with a deep understanding of cryptography and coding. But as the police delved deeper into the case, they began to realize that the killer's claims may have been exaggerated and that he may have been using his intelligence and charm to manipulate the police and the public. But that wasn't the strangest part. As the police followed the trail of clues, they began to realize that the Zodiac killer may have been more than just a serial killer. He may have been a symbol of a larger societal problem, one that would require a deep understanding of the human psyche and the darker aspects of human nature. The investigation was about to take a dramatic turn as the police received a new lead that would change everything. A former acquaintance of the Zodiac killer had come forward, claiming to have information about the killer's true identity. The acquaintance claimed that the killer was a quiet and unassuming individual who had a deep fascination with cryptography and coding. But as the police delved deeper into the case, they began to realize that the acquaintance's claims may have been motivated by a desire for attention rather than a genuine desire to help. The police were faced with a daunting task to verify the claims made by the acquaintance and to bring an end to the terror that had gripped the nation. But as they followed the trail of clues, they began to realize that the truth was far more complex and nuanced than they had ever imagined. The Zodiac killer was not just a monster, but a symbol of a larger societal problem, one that would require a deep understanding of the human psyche and the darker aspects of human nature. As the investigation continued, the police began to uncover a pattern of behavior that would prove to be crucial in understanding the Zodiac killer's motivations. The killer seemed to be drawn to areas with high foot traffic, where he could blend in with the crowds and strike without warning. He was a master of manipulation, using his charm and charisma to lure his victims into a false sense of security. But despite his ability to deceive, the killer had left behind a trail of clues that would ultimately lead to his downfall. The police had discovered a series of inconsistencies in the killer's letters, inconsistencies that would prove to be crucial in uncovering his true identity. The killer had claimed to be a highly educated individual with a deep understanding of cryptography and coding. But as the police delved deeper into the case, they began to realize that the killer's claims may have been exaggerated and that he may have been using his intelligence and charm to manipulate the police and the public. But what was the motive behind these killings, and how were they connected to the Zodiac killer's twisted game of cat and mouse with the police? The answer would lie in the complex web of clues and codes that the killer had left behind, a web that would require a deep understanding of the human psyche and the darker aspects of human nature to unravel. The investigation was about to take a dramatic turn as the police received a new lead that would change everything. A cryptic message had been discovered, one that seemed to point to the killer's true identity. The message was a complex code, one that would require a deep understanding of cryptography and coding to decipher. But as the police worked on the code, they began to realize that it was more than just a simple puzzle. The code was a window into the killer's twisted psyche, a glimpse into the mind of a monster. The police were faced with a daunting task to decipher the code and to bring an end to the terror that had gripped the nation. But as they followed the trail of clues, they began to realize that the truth was far more complex and nuanced than they had ever imagined. The Zodiac killer was not just a monster, but a symbol of a larger societal problem, one that would require a deep understanding of the human psyche and the darker aspects of human nature. But that wasn't the strangest part. As the police delved deeper into the case, they began to realize that the Zodiac killer may have been more than just a serial killer. He may have been a mastermind, always staying one step ahead of the law and leaving behind a trail of clues that were designed to confuse and mislead. As the investigation continued, the police began to uncover a web of contradictions and complications that would challenge even the most experienced investigators. The Zodiac killer seemed to be a master of disguise, able to blend in seamlessly with his surroundings and to adopt different personas at will. But despite his ability to evade immediate capture, the physical evidence he left behind presented a deeply unsettling paradox. He was at once sloppy and meticulously cautious, leaving behind blood, boot prints, and handwritten notes, yet somehow managing to insulate his true identity behind a fog of conflicting descriptions and operational errors by law enforcement. On the night of October 11, 1969, the killer's tactical pattern shifted dramatically. Until that point, he had targeted couples in secluded, Lover's Lane-style environments on the fringes of Solano and Napa counties. But in San Francisco's affluent Presidio Heights neighborhood, he took his campaign directly into the heart of a densely populated urban area. Taxi driver Paul Stine picked up a fare at Washington and Maple Streets. Minutes later, Stine was shot once in the right temple at point-blank range. 3 young witnesses watching from a second-story window across the street saw the gunman in the front seat of the cab. They observed him wiping down the interior surfaces, leaning over the driver's body, and physically tearing off a piece of Stine's blood-drenched shirt tail. The children called the San Francisco Police Department immediately, providing a clear description of a white male, heavy-set, with short reddish-brown hair and glasses. Then came the fatal error that would haunt the investigation for generations. The police dispatcher mistakenly broadcast a bulletin for a black male suspect. 2 responding officers, Donald Fouke and Eric Zelms, were cruising down Jackson Street toward the scene when they passed a white man walking casually along the sidewalk, heading toward the Presidio Military Reservation. Because of the incorrect radio broadcast, the officers slowed down, looked at the man, but did not stop him. It was only minutes later, when the revised description came over the radio, that Fouke realized they had likely driven past the murderer holding the torn piece of Paul Stine's shirt in his pocket. By the time search teams flooded the dark trails of the Presidio, the killer had already slipped away into the night. Within 48 hours, the San Francisco Chronicle received an envelope that silenced any lingering doubts. Inside was a blood-stained swatch of fabric cut from the tail of Paul Stine's shirt, accompanied by a letter written in the killer's unmistakable slanted script. He mocked the San Francisco Police Department, boasting that he had walked right past 2 officers while they were looking for a black suspect. SFPD initially denied the interaction occurred, but an internal memorandum written by Officer Fouke confirmed that he and his partner had indeed encountered a man matching the revised description, walking calmly away from the crime scene toward the park. It was an astonishing, agonizing near miss, and it revealed a terrifying reality. The killer was not just evading law enforcement. He was watching them, correcting their mistakes, and using their own communications against them. That letter contained another, far more sinister revelation that sent shockwaves through the Bay Area. The killer threatened to target a school bus, claiming he would pick off the children as they bounced out of the vehicle. Panic gripped the region immediately. Police cars escorted school buses, armed guards sat on board, and parents kept their children indoors. Yet while the public lived in constant dread of an attack on a bus, investigators were quietly analyzing a different aspect of the killer's psychological profile. He was increasingly obsessed with media attention, and specifically, with his own voice. Up to this point, the primary contact the public had with the murderer was through the written word. But investigators knew that the killer had spoken directly to authorities on multiple occasions. Following the attack at Blue Rock Springs in July 1969, a man called the Vallejo Police Department from a payphone near the station. Dispatcher Nancy Slover answered the call. She described the voice as calm, unhurried, and monotone, speaking in a measured, almost robotic cadence as if reading from a prepared script. Months later, after the horrific stabbing at Lake Berryessa, another call was placed to the Napa Sheriff's Department. The voice was the same, flat, precise, and devoid of emotion, boasting of the crime before hanging up. These calls were not recorded, leaving investigators with only the vivid memories of dispatchers to build an acoustic profile. But that was about to change. In late October 1969, a phone call was placed to the Oakland Police Department. The caller demanded that a prominent attorney, either F. Lee Bailey or Melvin Belly, appear on the morning television talk show hosted by Jim Dunbar on KGO-TV, threatening that if they did not, he would kill again. Belly agreed, and on live television, a man calling himself Sam telephoned the studio multiple times. Millions of viewers listened in horror as the host and the attorney engaged in engagement with the mysterious caller, who claimed to be the Zodiac, but the conversation was marked by inconsistencies and evasions, leaving many to wonder if this was indeed the killer or a clever imposter. The caller's voice was calm and collected, yet the words themselves were laced with a sinister intent as he discussed his demands and the prospect of future violence. But that wasn't the strangest part, for as the conversation unfolded, it became apparent that the caller seemed more interested in toying with his audience than in making any concrete demands or revelations. This cat-and-mouse game played out on live television, captivating the nation's attention, as the Zodiac's letters and codes had done before. However, the dynamic between the host, the attorney, and the caller introduced a new layer of complexity to the case. It raised questions about the killer's motivations and the role of the media in his game of terror. Was he seeking notoriety, or was there a deeper psychological need at play? The fact that he chose to engage with a television audience rather than simply sending another letter or making a private call suggests a desire for a broader stage, a larger audience to witness his twisted performance. Yet, despite this public display, the Zodiac remained elusive, his true identity hidden behind a veil of codes and pseudonyms. The investigation into his identity was ongoing, with detectives following leads and interviewing suspects, but every promising trail seemed to end in a dead end. The lack of progress was frustrating, especially given the Zodiac's brazenness in reaching out to the public and the media. It highlighted the challenges faced by law enforcement in dealing with a criminal who was not only violent, but also highly intelligent and calculating. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the Zodiac's silence was as unsettling as his previous outbursts. The public was left wondering if he had indeed been the caller on the Jim Dunbar show, and if so, what his next move would be. The anticipation was palpable, a mixture of fear and fascination that gripped the community. But then, a new letter arrived, breaking the silence and reigniting the fear. It was a reminder that the Zodiac was still out there, watching and waiting, his motives unclear but his intentions unmistakable. This latest communication was scrutinized for any clues, any hint that might lead to the killer's capture. The language was as cryptic as ever, with references to previous crimes and veiled threats of future attacks. However, there was something different about this letter, a sense of frustration or perhaps desperation that underlay the usual boastfulness. It was as if the Zodiac felt his control slipping, his grip on the public's imagination beginning to loosen. But that wasn't the only development in the case, for around the same time, a new suspect emerged, one who would captivate investigators and provoke more questions than answers. The suspect in question was a man named Arthur Lee Allen, who had been brought to the attention of the police by his own family members. They had grown concerned about his behavior and reported that he had made comments that seemed to suggest a fascination with the Zodiac killings. Allen had a history of mental health issues and had been known to make disturbing remarks, but was he capable of the Zodiac's level of sophistication and brutality? The investigation into Allen's background and potential links to the crimes was meticulous, involving interviews with those who knew him and a thorough examination of his alibis for the times of the known Zodiac attacks. However, as investigators dug deeper, they encountered a myriad of contradictions and complications. Allen's story was complex, marked by periods of stability and episodes of severe mental distress. His potential connection to the Zodiac was intriguing but far from conclusive. The more that was learned about him, the more questions arose, not just about his guilt or innocence, but about the nature of the Zodiac's crimes themselves. Were they the acts of a lone individual, or was there more to the story, a network of influences or accomplices that had not yet been uncovered? The pursuit of the truth about the Zodiac and his possible connections to individuals like Arthur Lee Allen led down many paths, each one promising but ultimately inconclusive. The case was a labyrinth, full of dead ends and misleading clues, with the killer always seeming to be one step ahead. Yet, despite the frustration and the fear, the investigation pressed on, driven by the hope that one day, the Zodiac's true identity would be revealed and justice would be served. But that day seemed further away than ever, as the Zodiac, if indeed it was him, continued to manipulate the situation, always staying in the shadows, pulling the strings of fear and uncertainty. As the years passed, the Zodiac's legend grew, a figure of dark fascination in the annals of true crime. But for those directly affected by his actions, the families of the victims, and the investigators who had dedicated their lives to solving the case, the Zodiac was more than just a figure of morbid curiosity. He was a reminder of the evil that lurked in the world, a challenge to the notion of justice and the belief in the ability of law enforcement to protect and serve. The case remained open, a cold and haunting reminder of the Zodiac's unfinished business, a testament to the enduring power of fear and the unquenchable thirst for justice. But even as the trail seemed to go cold, new leads emerged, new theories and suspects, each one reigniting the hope that the case might finally be solved. The advent of new technologies and forensic techniques offered fresh avenues for investigation, ways to re-examine the evidence and potentially uncover clues that had been missed the first time around. It was a testament to the dedication of those involved, their refusal to give up, even in the face of overwhelming odds and the passage of time. And yet, despite these efforts, the Zodiac remained at large, his secrets locked away, leaving behind only the haunting legacy of his crimes and the eternal question, who was the Zodiac really? The search for the Zodiac's true identity has become a sort of collective obsession, a puzzle that seems impossible to solve. Each new revelation, each potential suspect, brings with it a wave of excitement and disappointment. The case has spawned countless theories, from the plausible to the outright bizarre, each one attempting to fill in the gaps of the Zodiac's story. But amidst all the speculation, one fact remains clear. The Zodiac's impact on the world of true crime is undeniable, a benchmark of brutality and cunning that has captivated and horrified in equal measure. As we delve deeper into the mystery of the Zodiac, it becomes increasingly clear that the truth behind his identity and motives may never be fully known. The case is a maze of contradictions and inconsistencies, with each new discovery raising more questions than it answers. And yet, it is this very complexity that makes the Zodiac so fascinating, a figure who embodies the darkest aspects of human nature while simultaneously challenging our understanding of what it means to be human. The Zodiac's legacy is a grim reminder of the evil that exists in the world, but it also serves as a testament to the enduring power of human curiosity and the unrelenting pursuit of justice. In the end, the Zodiac story is one of mystery and terror, a haunting reminder of the horrors that humanity is capable of inflicting upon itself. It is a case that continues to captivate and frustrate, a puzzle that may never be fully solved. But even as the Zodiac remains at large, his legacy serves as a stark reminder of the importance of perseverance and the unwavering dedication to uncovering the truth, no matter how elusive it may seem. The search for the Zodiac may never end, but it is in this search that we find a glimmer of hope, a hope that one day justice will be served and the truth will finally be revealed. The investigation into the Zodiac's identity and crimes is an ongoing saga, with new leads and new suspects emerging even to this day. Each development brings with it a renewed sense of purpose and a rekindled hope that the case may finally be solved. But as the years turn into decades, and the decades into a lifetime, the Zodiac's mystery only deepens, becoming an integral part of the true crime landscape. His legacy is a dark and haunting one, a reminder of the shadows that exist within human nature and the terrifying consequences of when those shadows are allowed to prevail. And so, the story of the Zodiac continues, a narrative of fear, fascination, and the unrelenting pursuit of justice. It is a story that weaves together the threads of human psychology, criminal investigation, and the public's enduring fascination with the darker aspects of life. The Zodiac may never be caught, his true identity may never be known, but his impact on our collective psyche will endure, a haunting reminder of the evil that lurks in the shadows, waiting to strike. But even in the face of such horror, there is a beacon of hope, the hope that through our collective efforts, through our pursuit of justice and our determination to uncover the truth, we may one day bring an end to the Zodiac's reign of terror and find closure for the victims and their families. The Zodiac's case is a complex web of intrigue and deception, with each strand leading to more questions and more mysteries. It is a challenge to our understanding of human behavior, a test of our ability to comprehend the incomprehensible. And yet, it is in this very complexity that we find a glimmer of hope, a hope that by unraveling the threads of the Zodiac story, we may uncover not just his identity, but a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. The search for the Zodiac is a journey into the heart of darkness, but it is also a journey of discovery, a discovery of the human condition in all its complexity and fragility. As we reflect on the Zodiac's legacy, we are reminded of the power of human curiosity and the importance of never giving up in the face of adversity. The case may never be fully solved, but it is in the pursuit of the truth that we find meaning and purpose. The Zodiac story is a dark and haunting one, but it is also a testament to the human spirit, a spirit that refuses to be defeated by the forces of evil and darkness. And so, the search continues, a search for justice, for truth, and for a deeper understanding of the human condition. The Zodiac may remain at large, but his impact on our world will never be forgotten, a reminder of the enduring power of human resilience and determination. But the story doesn't end there, for in the world of true crime, nothing is ever as it seems. New evidence emerges, new theories are proposed, and the case continues to evolve. The Zodiac's legacy is a living, breathing entity, a reminder that the past is never truly past, but always present, waiting to be uncovered and understood. And so, we continue to search to seek out the truth and to bring justice to those who have been wronged. The Zodiac may have started as a simple serial killer, but his impact has been anything but simple. He has become a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of the darker aspects of human nature, and a reminder of the importance of perseverance and determination. The investigation into the Zodiac's crimes is a testament to the power of human ingenuity and the importance of never giving up. It is a story of twists and turns, of dead ends and new beginnings. And yet, despite the challenges and the setbacks, the search for the truth continues, driven by a fierce determination to uncover the secrets that the Zodiac has kept hidden for so long. The case may never be fully solved, but it is in the pursuit of justice that we find meaning and purpose. The Zodiac's legacy is a complex and multifaceted one, a reminder of the enduring power of human curiosity and the unrelenting pursuit of truth. As we look back on the Zodiac's reign of terror, we are reminded of the importance of vigilance and the need to always be aware of our surroundings. The Zodiac's crimes were a wake-up call, a reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places, and that we must always be prepared to face it head-on. But even as we acknowledge the darkness that the Zodiac represents, we must also recognize the power of the human spirit, a spirit that refuses to be defeated by the forces of evil and darkness. The search for the Zodiac is a testament to this spirit, a spirit that continues to drive us forward, even in the face of adversity and uncertainty. The Zodiac's case is a reminder that the truth is often complex and multifaceted, and that the pursuit of justice is a lifelong journey. It is a journey that requires patience, perseverance, and a fierce determination to uncover the secrets that lie hidden. The Zodiac may have started as a simple serial killer, but his legacy has become something much more complex, a symbol of the darker aspects of human nature, and a reminder of the importance of never giving up in the face of adversity. And so, the search continues, a search for justice, for truth, and for a deeper understanding of the human condition. The Zodiac may remain at large, but his impact on our world will never be forgotten, a reminder of the enduring power of human resilience and determination. In the end, the Zodiac story is one of mystery and terror, a haunting reminder of the horrors that humanity is capable of inflicting upon itself. But it is also a testament to the power of human curiosity and the unrelenting pursuit of justice. The case may never be fully solved, but it is in the pursuit of the truth that we find meaning and purpose. The Zodiac's legacy is a complex and multifaceted one, a reminder of the enduring power of human ingenuity and the importance of never giving up in the face of adversity. And so, the search continues, a search for justice, for truth, and for a deeper understanding of the human condition. The Zodiac may remain at large, but his impact on our world will never be forgotten, a reminder of the importance of perseverance and determination in the face of evil and darkness. The investigation into the Zodiac's crimes is an ongoing saga, with new leads and new suspects emerging even to this day. The transition from late 20th century police work to modern forensic science has fundamentally altered the landscape of the Zodiac investigation. In offices across Northern California, from the Vallejo Police Department to the Napa County Sheriff's Office and the San Francisco Police Department, cold case units are leveraging technologies that were unthinkable when the killer first terrorized the Bay Area. At the heart of this modern effort is the hunt for usable genetic material, a pursuit that has transformed preserved evidence into potential keys for unraveling the killer's identity. The physical evidence itself presents a complex puzzle.